Basic concepts of political science include power, authority, legitimacy, sovereignty, democracy, government, state, nation, nation-state. Power. Power is the ability or capacity to influence or control the behavior of others, events, or the course of developments. Forms of power. Number 1. Political power. The ability of individuals, groups, or institutions to influence or control political decisions and policies. Number 2. Social power. Influence or control within a social context, often related to one's position, status, or ability to shape social norms. Number 3. Economic power. Control over resources, wealth, and economic activities that can impact individuals, organizations, or even entire nations. Number 4. Personal power. Influence an individual has over their own life or the lives of those around them. Number 5. Institutional power. The authority and influence held by organizations, governments, or other institutions. Sources of political power. Number 1. Legitimacy. Legitimate power often comes from being elected through democratic processes or following established legal frameworks. Number 2. Coercion. This is the use of force, intimidation, or the threat of punishment to influence or control others. Example are military power, law enforcement, or the ability to impose penalties for non-compliance. Number 3. Charisma. The personal charm, appeal, or magnetism of a leader that inspires loyalty and devotion. Charismatic leaders may gain influence and power through their ability to connect with and motivate people. Number 4. Ideology. The power derived from a set of beliefs, values, or political ideologies that shape and guide actions. Example: political movements or parties with a strong ideological foundation. Number 5. Social networks. Influence gained through connections, alliances, and relationships within social or political networks. Example: networking and forming alliances can provide access to resources, support, and opportunities for political power. Number 6. Public opinion. The power derived from the approval and support of the general public. Authority. Authority refers to the legitimate or rightful power that an individual or an institution possesses to give commands, make decisions, and enforce obedience. It is a socially recognized and accepted form of power that comes with a specific role, position, or set of responsibilities. Characteristics of authority. Number 1. Legitimacy. Authority is generally accepted as rightful and justified by the individuals or groups under its influence. It is often conferred by societal norms, laws, or established structures. Number 2. Hierarchy. Authority is closely tied to hierarchical systems where individuals at higher levels possess authority over those at lower levels. This vertical structure helps maintain order and coordination. Number 3. Command and obedience. Those with authority have the ability to give commands or directives, and others are expected to comply or obey within the framework of established rules and norms. Number 4. Responsibility. Authority comes with responsibilities and obligations. Individuals in authoritative positions are typically accountable for their decisions and actions. Types of authority. Number 1. Traditional authority. Grounded in long-established customs, traditions, and historical continuity. Authority is inherited or passed down through generations, and legitimacy is derived from adherence to traditional norms. Take out some time to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Number 2. Legal rational authority. Derived from formal rules, laws, and established procedures. Authority is vested in specific positions or offices, and individuals hold authority as long as they occupy those positions according to established legal frameworks. Example are elected officials in democratic governments. Number 3. Charismatic authority. Rooted in the personal charisma, charm, or exceptional qualities of an individual leader. Authority is based on the leader's inspirational qualities, and followers are drawn to their dynamic and extraordinary persona. Number 4. Expert authority. grounded in specialized knowledge, skills, or expertise in a particular field. Authority is conferred to individuals based on their competence and proficiency in a specific domain. Example: subject matter experts, scientists, or technical specialists. Number 5. Formal authority. Derived from the official role or position within an organization or system. Authority is granted based on the responsibilities associated with a formal position or title. Example: managers, supervisors, executives within a company. Number 6. Informal authority. Authority is not officially designated, but emerges through personal connections, trust, or respect. Example: influential colleagues, mentors, community leaders. Sources of traditional authority. Number 1. Customs and rituals. Traditional authority often originates from customs, rituals, and ceremonies that have been practiced over generations. The adherence to these rituals helps establish the legitimacy of leaders within the community. Number 2. Historical succession. The passing down of leadership roles or positions through hereditary succession is a common source of traditional authority. Leaders inherit their positions based on family lineage, reinforcing continuity and stability. Number 3. Cultural norms. Traditional authority is closely tied to cultural norms and values. Leaders who embody and uphold these cultural norms are more likely to be recognized as legitimate authorities within the community. Number 4. Religious influence. Religious beliefs and practices often play a significant role in traditional authority. Leaders who are seen as religiously devout or connected to spiritual traditions may gain authority within the community. Number 5. Community consensus. The acceptance of a leader by the community through consensus and shared agreement contributes to the legitimacy of traditional authority. The community's collective acknowledgement is a powerful source. Number 6. Oral tradition. The passing down of stories, legends, and oral traditions reinforces the authority of leaders by connecting them to the community's historical narrative. These narratives often highlight the leader's role in preserving traditions. Number 7. Age and seniority. In some traditional societies, age and seniority are important factors in determining authority. Older individuals may be accorded greater respect and leadership roles based on their life experiences. Differences between power and authority. Number 1. Source. Power can be derived from various sources, including physical strength, wealth, expertise, relationships, or strategic positioning. Power doesn't necessarily rely on formal legitimacy, while authority is typically vested in individuals or institutions based on recognized legitimacy, such as legal frameworks, cultural traditions, or formal positions. Number 2. Legitimacy. Power may or may not be legitimate. It can be acquired through coercion, manipulation, or informal means. Authority is inherently tied to legitimacy. It is recognized and accepted as rightful influence within a particular social, organizational, or political context. Number 3. Basis of influence. Power can be exercised through force, persuasion, manipulation, coercion, or control over resources. Authority operates within established rules, norms, and structures. Influence is derived from one's rightful position or role. Number 4. Duration. Power can be temporary and may change quickly based on shifting circumstances or dynamics. Authority often has a more enduring quality, associated with stable positions or roles within a system. Number 5. Consent and obedience. Power may or may not involve voluntary consent. Obedience may be driven by fear or necessity. Authority involves a degree of voluntary consent or acknowledgement of legitimacy. Obedience is often based on a recognition of rightful influence. Number 6. Formality. Power can operate in formal and informal settings. It doesn't necessarily require official positions. Authority often associated with formal roles, positions, or titles within organizations, institutions, or governance structures. Number 7. Accountability. Power may not come with inherent accountability. Those with power might not be responsible for their actions. Authority typically involves accountability for decisions and actions, as individuals in authoritative positions are expected to fulfill their responsibilities. Sovereignty. Sovereignty refers to the supreme and absolute authority and power that a state possesses over its own territory, government, and population. It is the highest level of political authority, indicating that a state is independent and free from external control within its recognized borders. Characteristics of sovereignty. Number 1. Territorial integrity. Sovereignty implies control and authority over a defined geographic area with recognized boundaries. External interference or infringement on this territory is seen as a violation of sovereignty. Number 2. Political autonomy. A sovereign state has the ability to govern itself without being subject to the control of external powers. This includes the right to make laws, establish policies, and determine its own form of government. Number 3. Legal independence. Sovereignty is often enshrined in international law, and recognition by other states is an important aspect of a state's sovereign status. Number 4. International relations. Sovereign states engage in diplomatic relations with other sovereign entities. Treaties, alliances, and agreements are formed based on mutual recognition of each state's sovereignty. Number 5. Non-intervention. The principle of non-intervention asserts that external powers should not interfere in the internal affairs of a sovereign state. Types of sovereignty. Number 1. Westphalian sovereignty. This traditional concept emphasizes the idea of state sovereignty as absolute and indivisible. It emerged from the Peace of Westphalia treaties in the 17th century and is associated with the principles of territorial integrity and non-intervention. Number 2. Popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty asserts that the ultimate authority resides in the people. Governments derive their legitimacy from the consent of the governed, and individuals have the right to participate in decision-making through democratic processes. Number 3. Internal sovereignty. Internal sovereignty refers to a state's authority and control over its domestic affairs, including the ability to make laws, enforce order, and govern without interference from external forces. Number 4. External sovereignty. External sovereignty emphasizes a state's independence and autonomy in its dealings with other states. It involves the recognition of a state's authority by the international community and the right to conduct foreign relations. Number 5. Full sovereignty. Full sovereignty implies complete and unrestricted control over a state's territory, government, and population without external limitations. It is often associated with the idea of absolute sovereignty. Number 6. Limited sovereignty. Limited sovereignty acknowledges that states may face constraints on their authority, either through international agreements, alliances, or obligations that restrict certain actions. Number 7. Parliamentary sovereignty. In constitutional monarchies with parliamentary systems, parliamentary sovereignty emphasizes the authority of the legislative branch to make and repeal laws, often with minimal constraints from other branches. Number 8. Popular national sovereignty. This concept combines popular sovereignty and national sovereignty, emphasizing that the people of a particular nation collectively hold the ultimate authority and determine the state's destiny. Number 9. Economic sovereignty. Economic sovereignty pertains to a state's ability to control its economic policies, resources, and trade without significant external influence. Number 10. Shared sovereignty. Shared sovereignty involves cooperative arrangements between states, where certain powers or responsibilities are jointly managed to address common challenges. It is often associated with regional or international organization. Limitations to the sovereignty of a state. Number 1. International law. States are bound by international law, treaties, and agreements. International organizations and treaties can impose obligations on states, limiting their freedom of action. Number 2. Globalization. The interconnectedness of economies, communication, and cultures in a globalized world means that decisions and actions by one state can have far-reaching consequences for others. Economic interdependence and transnational issues may require cooperation and compromise. Number 3. Human rights. The international community places importance on human rights. Actions by a state that violate basic human rights principles may face international condemnation and intervention. Number 4. Supranational organizations. Participation in supranational organizations, such as the European Union, can involve a transfer of some decision-making authority from individual states to the organization. Member states may be bound by common policies and regulations. Number 5. Economic interdependence. Economic ties and dependencies between states can influence their behavior. Economic sanctions, trade agreements, and financial interconnectedness can limit a state's autonomy. Number 6. Intervention for humanitarian reasons. The international community may intervene in a state's affairs for humanitarian reasons, such as preventing genocide or mass atrocities. The responsibility to protect is a principle that allows for intervention when a state fails to protect its citizens. Number 7. Non-state actors. Non-state actors including multinational corporations, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and terrorist groups can influence and challenge state sovereignty. These actors may operate across borders and impact state policies. Legitimacy. Legitimacy refers to the acceptance and recognition of an authority, institution, or government as valid, rightful, and conforming to established norms, rules, or principles within a particular social, political, or legal framework. It is the quality or status of being legitimate, meaning that the entity in question is considered lawful, justified, and morally acceptable by the relevant constituents or broader society. Characteristics of legitimacy. Number 1. Consent and acceptance. Legitimate authority or governance is typically characterized by the voluntary acceptance and consent of those subject to its influence. Number 2. Alignment with norms and rules. Legitimacy often involves adherence to established norms, rules, laws, or principles, contributing to a sense of order and justice. Number 3. Moral or ethical standing. Legitimacy is often associated with a perceived moral or ethical standing. Entities deemed legitimate are considered to act in accordance with moral principles. Number 4. Recognition by constituents. Legitimacy is not solely self-declared. It requires recognition and acknowledgement by the individuals, groups, or institutions governed by or subject to the authority. Number 5. Social contract. In political philosophy, legitimacy is often tied to the idea of a social contract, where individuals consent to be governed in exchange for protection of their rights and well-being. Number 6. Rule of law. Legitimacy is strengthened when governance adheres to the rule of law, ensuring that decisions and actions are consistent with established legal frameworks. Number 7. Democratic processes. In democratic systems, legitimacy is often linked to the process of free and fair elections, where leaders derive their authority from the will of the people. Types of legitimacy. Number 1. Traditional legitimacy. Grounded in long-standing customs, traditions, and historical continuity. Authority is deemed legitimate because it aligns with established traditions and cultural practices. Number 2. Legal rational legitimacy. Derives from adherence to formal rules, laws, and established procedures. Authority is considered legitimate when it operates with legal frameworks, respecting constitutional principles and the rule of law. Number 3. Charismatic legitimacy. Rooted in the personal charisma, charm, or exceptional qualities of a leader. Authority gains legitimacy through the leader's inspiring personality, vision, and dynamic qualities. Number 4. De facto legitimacy. Gained through practical acceptance and effectiveness in governance. Take out some time to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Democracy. Democracy is a system of government in which power is vested in the hands of the people, either directly or through elected representatives. The term, democracy, originates from the Greek words demos, meaning the people, and kratos, meaning power or rule. In a democratic system, the participation of citizens in decision-making, the protection of individual rights, and the rule of law are fundamental principles. Key characteristics of democracy. Number 1. Popular sovereignty. The ultimate source of political authority rests with the people. Citizens have the right to participate in decision-making processes, typically through voting. Number 2. Political pluralism. Multiple political parties and diverse viewpoints coexist, allowing citizens a range of options when choosing their representatives. Number 3. Rule of law. The government operates within a framework of laws that apply equally to all individuals, including those in power. The rule of law helps protect individual rights and prevent arbitrary use of authority. Number 4. Protection of minority rights. Democratic systems emphasize the protection of the rights and interests of minority groups, preventing the tyranny of the majority. Number 5. Free and fair elections. Regular elections provide a mechanism for citizens to choose their representatives, ensuring accountability and responsiveness to the will of the people. Number 6. Civil liberties. Democracies prioritize the protection of individual freedoms and civil liberties, such as freedom of speech, assembly, and the press. Number 7. Political participation. In addition to voting, citizens in a democracy may engage in various forms of political participation, including activism, advocacy, and running for office. Number 8. Transparency and accountability. Democratic governments are expected to operate transparently, with mechanisms in place for accountability. Public officials are accountable for their actions and decisions. Number 9. Peaceful transfer of power. Changes in government occur through peaceful means, typically through elections, rather than through force or coercion. Number 10. Independent judiciary. An independent judiciary ensures that legal decisions are made impartially, without interference from the executive and legislative branches. Forms of democracy. Number 1. Direct democracy. In a direct democracy, citizens participate directly in decision-making processes rather than through elected representatives. Number 2. Representative democracy. Citizens elect representatives to make decisions on their behalf. Elected officials are accountable to the voters. Number 3. Parliamentary democracy. The executive branch is derived from the legislative branch. The head of government is often the leader of the majority party in the legislature. Number 4. Presidential democracy. The executive branch is separate from the legislative branch. The president, elected independently, serves as the head of government and head of state. Number 5. Consensus democracy. Decision-making aims for broad consensus among various political, social, and cultural groups. Number 6. Deliberative democracy. Emphasizes informed and reasoned discussion among citizens to reach decisions collectively. Number 7. Liberal democracy. Combines representative democracy with the protection of individual rights, civil liberties, and rule of law. State. A state is a sovereign political entity with defined geographical boundaries, a permanent population, a government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other states. It is a complex institution that exercises authority over its territory and people, maintaining order through laws and institutions. The state is considered the highest political authority within its borders, and its sovereignty implies independence from external control. Features of a state. Number 1. Sovereignty. The state has ultimate and exclusive authority over its territory and people, free from external interference. Number 2. Defined territory. A state has clear and recognized geographical boundaries that separate it from other states. Number 3. Permanent population. A state consists of a stable and continuous population residing within its borders. Number 4. Government. The state has a political organization with institutions and officials that exercise authority and make decisions on behalf of the society. Number 5. Monopoly on the use of force. The state has the legitimate authority to use force within its borders, maintaining law and order through a monopoly on the legitimate use of force. Number 6. Legal system. A state typically has a system of laws and regulations that govern the behavior of its citizens and residents. Number 7. Capacity for foreign relations. States can engage in diplomatic relations, form alliances, and enter into agreements with other states. Number 8. Permanent institutions. The state has enduring structures and mechanisms, including branches of government, to carry out its functions over time. Nation. A nation is a group of people who share common cultural, historical, linguistic, or ethnic characteristics and often identify themselves as a distinct social and political community. A nation is a community bound by a sense of shared identity. Not all nations have their own independent state. Some may be dispersed across multiple states, while others may have their own sovereign nation-state. Features of a nation. Number 1. Shared identity. Common cultural, historical, linguistic, or ethnic characteristics that contribute to a sense of shared identity among its members. Number 2. Cultural cohesion. A strong cultural bond that may include shared traditions, customs, and values. Number 3. Historical continuity. A sense of historical continuity and a shared narrative that often includes a common history or origin. Number 4. Collective consciousness. A shared awareness among members of belonging to a distinct and cohesive community. Number 5. Solidarity. Mutual recognition and support among members of the nation, fostering a sense of community. Number 6. National symbols. Common symbols, such as flags, anthems, or emblems, that represent the identity and unity of the nation. Relationship between a state and a nation. Number 1. Nation-state. In an ideal scenario, a nation-state exists where the boundaries of a state align with the boundaries of a single nation. This means that the majority of the population within the state shares a common national identity. Number 2. Multinational state. Some states encompass multiple nations within their borders. Number 3. Stateless nation. A stateless nation refers to a group of people who share a common national identity but do not have their own sovereign state. Number 4. Nation without a state. In some cases, a nation may exist across multiple states. Differences between a state and a nation. Number 1. Definition. A state is a political entity with defined borders, a government, sovereignty, and the capacity to enter into relations with other states. A nation is a group of people who share common cultural, historical, linguistic, or ethnic characteristics and often identify themselves as a distinct social and political community. Number 2. Nature. The state is a political and legal entity that exercises authority over a specific territory and population. The nation is a cultural and social community defined by shared identity, often independent of political or territorial considerations. Number 3. Territoriality. The state is associated with a specific geographical territory with recognized borders. The nation may or may not have a direct connection to a specific territory. It is more about shared identity. Number 4. Political versus cultural. The state is primarily a political and legal concept, focusing on governance structures and political institutions. The nation is a cultural and social concept, emphasizing shared identity and community. Number 5. Multiplicity. Multiple nations can exist within a single state, multinational state, or a nation may span across multiple states, stateless nation. Number 6. Sovereignty. State sovereignty refers to the ultimate and exclusive authority over its territory. Nation sovereignty is more about cultural and social cohesion. It may or may not align with political boundaries. Nation-state. A nation-state is a political entity in which the boundaries of a sovereign state align with the boundaries of a single, self-identified nation. In other words, the majority of the population within a nation-state shares a common cultural, linguistic, or ethnic identity. The concept implies a close alignment between the political and cultural aspects of a community. Characteristics of a nation-state. Number 1. Shared identity. The majority of the population within the state identifies with a common national identity. Number 2. Cultural homogeneity. There is a significant degree of cultural, linguistic, or ethnic homogeneity among the population. Number 3. Political sovereignty. The state has full control and sovereignty over its territory and population. Number 4. National symbols. The presence of national symbols, such as flags, anthems, and emblems, that represent the shared identity of the nation. Government. Government refers to the system or organization through which authority and control are exercised over a community or a society. It is the entity responsible for making and enforcing laws, policies, and decisions that affect the members of a political unit, such as a country or a region. Characteristics of government. Number 1. Legitimacy. Governments derive their authority from various sources, such as constitutions, elections, or historical traditions. Legitimate governments are recognized as rightful and lawful by the population. Number 2. Structure. Governments have organizational structures that define the distribution of power, responsibilities, and decision-making processes. This structure often includes branches, such as the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Number 3. Power and authority. Governments have the power and authority to make and enforce laws, regulate behavior, and resolve conflicts within their jurisdiction. Number 4. Public policy. Governments formulate and implement public policies that address societal issues, promote the common good, and regulate various aspects of public life. Number 5. Public services. Governments provide essential services to the public, including infrastructure, education, healthcare, and social welfare programs. Number 6. Defense and security. Governments are responsible for ensuring the security and defense of the nation or community, protecting its citizens from external threats. Number 7. Taxation and revenue. Governments collect taxes and other revenues to fund public services and infrastructure projects. Number 8. Legal system. Governments establish and maintain legal systems that define and enforce laws, adjudicate disputes, and ensure justice. Number 9. Social contract. The relationship between the government and its citizens is often described as a social contract, where citizens consent to obey laws in exchange for protection and the provision of public goods and services. Importance of government. Number 1. Order and stability. Governments establish and enforce laws to maintain order within a society, ensuring the safety and security of its citizens. This helps prevent chaos and conflict. Number 2. Protection of rights. Governments are responsible for safeguarding the fundamental rights and liberties of individuals. They create legal frameworks to protect citizens from abuses and discrimination. Number 3. Public services. Governments provide essential public services, including education, healthcare, infrastructure, and social welfare programs, to enhance the well-being of the population. Number 4. Economic regulation. Governments play a key role in regulating economic activities, protecting consumers, ensuring fair competition, and managing public resources. They often intervene to address issues like unemployment and inflation. Number 5. National defense. Governments are responsible for the defense and security of the nation. They establish armed forces and strategies to protect the country from external threats. Number 6. Infrastructure development. Governments invest in and oversee the development of infrastructure such as roads, bridges, utilities, and communication networks, contributing to economic growth and improved quality of life. Number 7. Justice and legal system. Governments establish legal systems to administer justice, resolve disputes, and punish those who violate laws. This ensures fairness and equity in the application of laws. Number 8. Diplomacy and foreign relations. Governments engage in diplomatic relations with other nations, promoting international cooperation, resolving conflicts peacefully, and protecting national interests on the global stage. Number 9. Representation and democracy. In democratic systems, governments represent the will of the people. Elected officials make decisions on behalf of citizens, and regular elections provide a mechanism for accountability. Systems of government. Number 1. Unitary system. Power is concentrated at the central or national government level. Subnational entities have limited autonomy and derive authority from the central government. Number 2. Federal system. power is divided between a central government and regional or state governments. Each level of government has its own set of powers and responsibilities. Number 3. Confederal system. Independent states or regions form a loose alliance for mutual benefit. Each member retains sovereignty, and the central authority has limited powers. Number 4. Parliamentary system. The executive branch is derived from the legislative branch. The head of government is often the leader of the majority party in the legislature. Number 5. Presidential system. The executive branch is separate from the legislative branch. A president, elected independently, serves as the head of government and head of state. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.